Hi, everybody. It's Stuart Broadley from EIC, and welcome to another EIC Clearly podcast. And I'm delighted today to be with Ihab Mukhtar, who is CEO with PetroGas in Libya. Welcome, Ihab.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, EIC, for having me here.
Great to see you here. So I've got a whole bunch of questions for you, but I'd like to start with tell us a little about the company, PetroGas.
Okay, PetroGas was established in 2005. We're a technology solutions-driven company, so we try to focus in terms of providing services through internationally known companies from UK, Europe, the US, and through our local know-how, provide those services to the oil and gas companies in Libya to obviously build with the energy infrastructure and also to help with the increase in production.
And when did you become CEO?
In 2017.
Okay, what were you doing before then?
I was in PetroGas. I've been there since 2008. So graduated from the UK, worked in Sheffield for 4 years, and then moved to Libya. So I was in the logistics business, got a bit of experience in terms of public contracts, private contracts, but my background's actually in international business. So that whole idea of going abroad was always something that intrigued me, and Libya was an easy one considering it's my second nationality.
So let's talk a bit about you then. You were educated in the UK. So go back right back to the beginning. Where does it all start for you?
It all started actually in Edinburgh, in Scotland. So we arrived in 1990. My parents are both doctors, so I was educated there. Then moved to Northern Ireland, where we lived in Belfast for almost 6 years, and then moved to UK. So because of how the rotation of doctors work, ended up getting a bit of a different diversity in terms of communities, accents, way of life. So I think it kind of helped to also in terms of build that kind of notion later on, like today, where mixing with people from internationally abroad. So we settled in a little place called Stafford, went to school there, and then after finishing A-levels, went to Sheffield, studied their international business, was there for 4 years at the university, and then also managed to get a job there. And then there came an opportunity through where I was exploring options to work abroad. And because of my roots back to Libya, I was intrigued. I didn't know much about the oil and gas industry back then, actually. So I took a leap of faith, and me and my brother actually ended up going there. He went down the corporate route, working with a Schlumberger, and I decided to head into private business and started off in project management, actually. And that's where I came across working with General Electric. So we were their sales representative at the time.
All right, it all came from there. Where were you born, though?
I was born in Libya,
You were born in Libya. Whereabouts in Libya?
in Tripoli.
And so your job today, you're back in Libya there.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Is where? Whereabouts in Libya you were?
Oh, so we're based in Tripoli, but we have representation across Libya. So we have a branch in Sebha, which is the capital of the south of Libya. And we also have in Libya's second largest city, it's called Benghazi, because as you know, a lot of the major oil fields are actually based in eastern Libya.
And your parents? What are they?
My parents are both from Tripoli, but they're still based in the UK,
They're in the
actually.
UK.
Still in the UK.
Oh, so
Part
so
of the
now I know
NHS.
because you came along very kindly to the Energy Exports Conference in June 2024
Correct.
and came along and talked about the Libyan market there. And I think it's brilliant that you're able to travel, but you've got family, of course, in the UK. So hopefully then we'll get you back to the Energy Exports Conference.
I look forward to it every single time, if I'm honest. It was a great little event, and I think even Libya attracted quite a bit of attention at the time.
It was a very popular market that everybody wants to work in, subject to answering a few questions, which is why I thought it would be great to talk to you today to understand, okay, it's an amazing market, and I want to answer the questions around but. So should we go?
Go for it. I'm ready.
Okay, great. So let's start with the Libyan government's ambitions around production for oil and gas, because obviously Libya has some history around some of the conflict that it's now recovering from. Where are we in terms of, becoming a safe and secure place to live and work again? And what are the ambitions to get oil and gas production up again?
Sure. Look, as far as Libya's energy sector is concerned, I think the one and first and foremost important thing for viewers to take into consideration is that the NOCs actually remained as one institution. So regardless of the volatility that people probably read about and have seen in the news when Libya creep into the headlines, is that there's an international consensus as well that Libya's main institutions, which are the central bank, the NOC, and Libya Investment Authority, remain as a whole body. So from that aspect, what does that mean for a private business? There's a sense of stability, knowing who the leadership are. And as a result, any any administration that comes in, which includes the current one, with the ambitions, it's one of the few sectors and areas where there's actually a sense of understanding and knowing what's going to happen. So Libya's objective as a result of a country that relies heavily on oil production and the resources and income that comes from it means that there's, what do you call it, targets that are in place, which the government looks at, studies, and how to allocate the resources, primarily, obviously, the budget for that. So as far as ambitions, the ambition at the moment is to increase production to 2 million barrels. We're currently hovering between 1.2 to 1.4. And the key metric and markers, Stuart, for something like this is obviously that how is the oil production doing? Because in the years beforehand, production would sometimes drop and dip. But actually, we've had very consistent markers which point to stability. And, that's incredibly important for business.
What infrastructure would be required then to get back to 2 million barrels per day?
So the interesting fact for people that might not know the full history in Libya, when we recently had actually a ceremony in Brega where the first oil was exported in the 1950s. They had a big ceremony there, and they even had the NOC held some of its budgetary meetings. Why I bring that up is because back then Libya had managed to reach almost 3 million barrels. So there was actually infrastructure in place across West, South, East Libya to export 3 million barrels. But as a result of obviously years of neglect, there's an opportunity to upgrade that infrastructure. So we're talking in terms of the refineries, we're talking in terms of the pipeline, the wells that also need to be revisited again to look at how they're behaving, doing a lot of seismic activity as well. So in terms just from the maintenance and upgrading, there's huge potential.
So British companies, and in fact, supply chain companies all around the world are circling the Libya market. What does Libya need? Because obviously there's some supply chain capability inside the country, and I'm sure we'll come on to talk about sort of in-country requirements. But what are you looking for international supply chain to bring?
One of the things is PetroGas, actually, we try to provide advice, consultancy to people that are interested in the market as a result of what are the requirements, what are the needs of Libya. And in this regard, there's to actually keep and maintain production. You need to constantly, like I said, be surveying and studying what's happening in the wells. So you need a lot of engineering capabilities. And places like the UK have great experience in this up in the North Sea, where you have depleted wells and production where the well's heading into the tertiary phase. So you need people that have that understanding and that background and that experience to talk with Libyan engineers to communicate what's the best way to get the most out of what's currently produced. And as I'm sure you and our followers have seen, that the past year there's been something called Libya Bid Round that's been promoted by the Minister of Oil and the NOC, where they're looking at concessions where there's proven reserves and inviting companies, some of which I know are UK companies as well, looking to come in to explore those fields and maintain, because as you know, production will deplete if you keep producing at this level. So the
So
important...
these are production sharing contract opportunities?
Yes. So they're looking to move on from the EPSA. Libya currently works on EPSA 4. There were previously studies being made at EPSA 5. But since the current minister has come in and with a number of consulting companies, they've had a look at it. And I think the best way is to have an updated PSA, so which is a production sharing.
Anything you think, and particularly with your kind of UK heritage, that in the industry you're in, you must have a view now on what UK companies are good at, would be a good fit. What are you looking for?
From our experience, we've got some people that are engineers that are with us that are from the UK. So when you're looking from UK companies as far as an oil services company is concerned, we've got rotating equipment. So usually these are mechanical engineers in instrumentation as well. So a lot of the equipment that need upgrades is we kind of look at it in today's digital world as being asset management. So people that are good at looking at data sets, understanding what's going on with the equipment. You've got some great companies which we've worked with before that look at pipeline integrity. So the state of the current pipeline, looking at the corrosion. So the UK has got very specialized technicians, engineers, experts, where we think that Libya could really benefit from those kinds of resources, especially in today, as you hear probably a lot in certain parts of the world. There's a knowledge gap appearing, and we've got a lot of young people. Libya is a country with a young population, and we're trying to even do more, even on the private side, even though we want to encourage the government to do the same, where there's training, workshops. So the UK can play a role in that as well, from having, as someone who's experienced it myself, a great education sector. And we know that some of, not just my parents, but a lot of Libyan engineers have gone up, especially up north, north where they did their masters, and some have done their PhDs. So the UK's got a great variety of sectors and resources to be able to apply in a country like Libya.
You think there's kind of strong cultural links also between the UK and Libya?
Incredibly so. Even in the UN today, the UK is the pen maker. So there's a lot of historic aspects as well from dating back to after World War II. And from what I remember, even during the era of the monarchy, the king had a very good relationship with the British royal family at the time. So
What about then building on these sort of strong links and strong matching capabilities and a strong ambition and desire now the country has to rebuild and to make the most of its natural resources? Do you have certain skill sets inside the country that are severely missing? Or is it more kind of technical sort of products and services that you need in the country?
we always focus within even our own organization in terms of looking at ourselves in transparency. How do you complete each other as a team, right? As far as I can see from my own personal point of view, I think there's, in terms of leadership, in terms of planning, also in terms of capacity building, as we like to call it, in terms of management capabilities, the idea of working as a team, or that there's a difference. I think there's an important space there that needs to be covered, and that lends itself to the concept of consultancy as well. Having the right kind of companies that can come in and have a look at the NOC, have a look at the current subsidiary companies within there, and is this the most efficient way to make most of the resources? So yes, in that regards, it's quite an open kind of basket in terms of pickings of where you'd like to focus on. But the key thing for me is how we've built this relationship in terms of meeting and regularly talking to one another. It's a traditional way in terms of how the country still works. And that trust, I think, is important. And as you mentioned, because of the history, there's definitely a level of trust between the UK and Libya when it comes to that regards.
Absolutely. And as you say, when you came along to the Energy Exports Conference, it was incredible the interest that was there across companies wanting to learn more about the opportunities, excited to return back to Libya again. If you're enjoying this podcast and think you have an inspiring story to tell, contact me, Stuart Broadley, directly, as I would love to do a sea-level podcast with you too. EIC is proud to be the UK's largest membership energy trade association and the 5th largest in the world. We are unique around the world for 3 reasons. We are truly energy agnostic, believing all energy technologies are vital to delivering energy security, affordability, and a just transition. We are the only energy trade association anywhere in the world that offers a truly in-house one-stop shop for market intelligence, networks, and events to help our members export, diversify, and grow. And we are proud to be the voice of the energy supply chain, advocating for the 5 golden rules of a healthy energy supply chain. More details on EIC membership, the 5 golden rules, details about doing a future podcast with me, and how to contact us about anything else are in the description for this podcast. I think the one thing that we should talk about is companies and their concerns around safety and security inside the country. Where are we with that? Are there still risks that some companies would say are unacceptable to take? And for those companies that are going in, how are they doing that?
I think this is something that, for me, when I look at the region as a whole, if you look at the Middle East in general, there's a lot of areas where you have to plan, coordinate, and make sure that you have great logistics and HSE in place. I think there's a perception in Libya at one point that it was very easy to move around because of how the previous administrations used to function. But then there was a period when there was relative insecurity. And again, it goes back for me in terms of a level of trust. And the good thing about Libya is that it has a lot of joint venture subsidiary companies with the NOCs. So they've brought in their experts, how to look over time, collected data on how to move about, how to accommodate staff when they're coming in, what's the rotation that's applicable and safe. And over time have learnt because Libya's geography is quite huge, learned which area is affected by whether it's local misgrievances or if it's something that's sometimes out of a result of political disputes and so on, to kind of create a way of kind of looking at the country and what's happening and seeing what's the best way to manage it. But There's also been a positive side where there's actually been relative stability. Libyans have realized that in order for the country to function, in order for them to be taken seriously internationally, there has to be certain parameters and there has to be certain levels of safety and security. And for them to, even as for us as Libyans, to prosper, you need to create a space where people feel comfortable and safe. And today, I can honestly say a lot of people that are coming, we've held, like I said, workshops where we've had anywhere from 10 up to 20 delegates. Libya has held even an energy summit in Tripoli, and in Benghazi, they've held infrastructure. People are pleasantly surprised. They're seeing a level of security that's become a norm in Libya that they weren't expecting when they arrived. Don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect situation in terms of organization and so on, which I'm sure you're going to mention the bureaucracy, but that's a result of what we've inherited, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of create some kind of harmony in that sense.
You're on a journey, aren't you?
Yes.
For companies wanting to come into the country and do business, what is the best way to do it right now? Is it with a partner? Is it initially coming in and out of the country and, importing, exporting? What would you say is the right way to go?
So the government, from a governmental aspect, they've seen the importance of having expats and foreign nationals. They've set up a portal by which you can apply for the visa, but you will be coming in with a guide. The other aspect is that you need someone to vouch for you. So concept of partnership is important. This is why we're having this discussion today to kind of honestly talk not just about PetroGas, but saying which companies are out there operating, who's genuinely trying to make a difference so that you can match people up. And by doing so, then they can apply for what's called a business visa. You come in through as a sponsorship on behalf of the local entity that's there, and you can move about freely under their responsibility. Those are the available options. There's also, like I said, because we've got engineers that are expats, the Libyan government has legitimate processes by where you can get residency, providing that you have a legitimate contract in Libya. So for those that are more looking towards the long-term aspects of employment opportunities in Libya and ready to work in the field, those opportunities exist as well. So it's not just open just for business, it's open for individuals too and professionals.
Are there specific in-country requirements for doing business in Libya?
Yes, so currently under the Ministry of Economy, you have the options of, if you're looking as an entity, you can have a representative office, which allows you to scope the market, see what works for you. If you are confident enough and you feel that you have some companies bid even from outside Libya, and Libyan companies, like the National Oil Corporation, give them the opportunity or a timeline whereby if they're awarded a contract, especially if it's a service contract, to set up a branch there. Basically, it would still be a foreign entity, but with a branch where you would have to have, in our case, would be a UK branch manager and then a Libyan deputy. That's how that kind of works. And the final arrangement, if you're lucky enough to get a considerable one of the big mega projects, usually joint venture is the next path. There's luckily a lot of Libyan companies now that are legal companies that can provide you with legal advice on how to go about that. If anyone's interested, we'll be more than happy to share with them companies that are specialized in that aspect. The final aspect, obviously, is that you can have a local partner. I think for me, from our experience, and I'm not obviously plugging it, but it's an empowerment tool. You also have greater intelligence. You are then able to have people that are probably already have experience in the market, know how to negotiate, know how to understand the technical aspects and communicate them across to you, and also be aware of, should we say, the cultural sensitivities sometimes that most foreign companies may not have the resources to manage and be aware of.
And this is something you can do.
Exactly.
Let's talk about bureaucracy, which you touched on before. So doing business in Libya perhaps is not easy, but the reward is good. Talk us through the commercial aspects of being successful.
Libya is one of those countries, first and foremost, I think, and in today's rapid moving economy is something that requires patience. And when you look at all the major companies that have grown and expanded and gone to that next level, you actually need to be able to ride out the difficult situations. For us, it was a case of adaptability, understanding the right mix of local know-how and also having the right kind of international experience to partner with us to take us through that journey. As a result of that, we've also been going to answer your question directly in terms of the commercial risks. You look at what's the best action to take. Can we leverage that risk on behalf of the partner and reach with them an agreement where it works for them because of the international standards? Or if we are talking of a sizable project in terms of the project scope, nature, and even value, then we will work with them to try and find a commercial path by which which they can secure the funds and obviously have the security of receiving payments. What does that tell you from what I say? The bureaucracy is still kind of there, but we can help you understand it. We can help you navigate it. And as a result, you've got things like letters of credit. You've also got more Libyan banks now that are applying US anti-corruption and also following the necessary compliance FATCA rules, which CBL signed with the US Treasury and the relevant subsidiary authorities who are associated with that. So it's kind of like bringing Libya to international best practice. And I think that's important because from what I've heard from being in the UK is that some UK companies have tried to sometimes do business and they faced issues with payments where their banks might not necessarily have confidence even once the bureaucracy is done. But actually, if you can communicate and connect the right people, then you are able to kind of clear up a lot of misunderstandings.
What are the live projects right now happening in Libya that companies should be most excited about?
In terms of offshore, there's a company called Melita Oil and Gas. So it's a joint venture between ENI and the NOC. They're doing a lot of gas development right now. They're also doing a lot of work actually related to the environmental aspects where they're trying to reduce flaring, and they're also upgrading their facilities. So ENI has invested approximately $8 billion. I think after a recent review, that could be even going up to $10 billion. So we're talking a lot of money, a lot of opportunities. BP's back as well, and they're looking to drill offshore. So UK companies that have their contacts within a company like BP should be picking up their phones or dropping those emails to see where their services can be available. Onshore, as I said to you before, when it comes to maintaining production and even looking to increase it, the aim of Libya at the moment, the latest announcement by the minister was that they're looking to increase by 2027 up to 1.6 million. So you're talking billions in terms of upgrading, in terms of pipeline, also needing inspection, power generation upgrades as well, even accommodation if there's EPC companies out there that are interested in bidding in Libya. So both onshore and offshore, there's quite a lot going on right now.
One of the signs that a market is really opening up is when the bigger players move in, and you gave a few names there. What about the big engineering companies like Baker Hughes, SLB? Are you seeing them back in?
Yes, they've considerably ramped up their oil field services, both companies and several others as well, local. We've seen hiring as well as having more camps across the country. And we're also seeing the rig count, which usually is one of the metrics to measure what's happening in a country, going up. And we're hearing also from our customers what the requirements are. So in terms of trying to compete in the global market today, where you know that the supply chain is heavily contested for, especially when you've got at least an area in power generation, where usually when you've got servers now, so in terms of cloud capacity for AI capacity, you need a lot more power generation, and the grids aren't really offering that from the national grids. So a lot of companies are actually building their own power generation facilities. So the challenge for somewhere like Libya is to make sure that the requirements are and get ahead of schedule. Sorry, going back to the question, we're seeing companies that are called like Nisr, SLB, OilServe, Baker Hughes, Halliburton. These are what you'd say in the oil and gas or household names, are very active again, and they're hiring, bringing their tools, bringing their technologies. So yes, there's a lot of activity because you have to position yourself, you know? If you don't position yourself within a country like Libya, because if you mentioned that there's a level of bureaucracy that you have to get through, you're going to be left behind once the gun goes off, you know? So
Which countries do you think are being most proactive in returning to Libya? It sounds like American companies would be number one.
I think when you have to look at the oil sector, you kind of have to also look at Libya's traditionally, where previously there was a lot of US companies. So there's a lot of assets that are legacy assets. So unless the ownerships changed hands with those equipment, then by nature, you're going to pick up the phone and call the maker of that equipment. But there's actually quite a few UK companies from our experience that have got their equipment there. And it's just, like I said, being here today and giving them the confidence to say that it's okay to come back into Libya today and to support us in helping our customers with their production activities.
It's okay to come back. This is good news. Oil and gas, of course, we've talked a lot about. Other energy sector opportunities, you touched a bit on power generation. I guess there is a kind of rebuild going on across the whole energy infrastructure, as well as, I guess, some opportunities to start looking at newer technologies, like maybe some renewable power as well. Talk to us about that.
There's an authority called the REAOL. They were at EIC in 2024, and they presented the potential in terms of renewables, particularly obviously solar. Libya has got a huge geographic space. Most of it is taken up by the desert, and we get an incredible amount of sunlight. So what they've looked at is how to create complementary power generation stations to provide to local communities that opportunity. What they're still going through is obviously the legal aspects to get the right kind of agreements and legal aspects in place so that investors that do want to come in have the ability to be able to make a profit at the end of the day. So it's one of the things that investors will look into. But yes, the other aspects, even from oil and gas, is actually, like I said, environmentally looking at deflaring. That's also one of the initiatives that the NOC, and how you can go about from burning that gas to actually benefiting from it and selling it to the market, whether it's in artificial crude or to produce methane. So they're looking at a lot of aspects in terms of how do you store that. If there's experts out there in the UK that are having the renewables, this is definitely an area that the NOC is looking at. And we, even as PetroGas, are looking at. We did a big event in terms of on decarbonization. So we're looking at a number of technologies to kind of complement solar energy and obviously at the moment power generation mostly through gas turbines.
Well, it's been fascinating talking to you, and thank you so much for really making Libya sound like the market we all should be in. And I know from an EIC point of view, we are looking at arranging an event there, delegations there. So I'm looking forward to coming over to attend one of those. Kind of sort of wrapping up then, what's the key piece of advice you would give to companies thinking about Libya right now?
Manage your expectations, because when you look at the potential that's there, Stuart, you think there should be a gold rush. But you have to realize that this is a country that's come out of, it's got a few scars, shall we say. Anyone that's injured or come out from a rocky past, you have to kind of tread carefully and manage how you look at the country and what business is actually the right one for you. So do your homework, speak to the right people. I think just like we're having this conversation today, communication is incredibly important in this region of the world where we are today, and also in terms of Libya. People are still kind of getting up to speed in terms of how the world is working, what's right, what works, what doesn't work. But you also have to be sensitive to the country dynamics. And I think that's really important for anyone that's interested in Libya.
And for you and PetroGas, what's next?
For PetroGas, like I said, one of the things that we've decided to focus on in recent years is to empower more our teams by giving confidence to international players that we can take your equipment, we can help you get it to market. So growing our teams both in terms of expats and Libyans. As I said before, there's a gap at this moment, and we're trying to fill it so that companies can have the confidence that if they've got an issue in their fields, we've got the right kind of expertise that can come and have a look at it, determine what's going on, and help them to basically mitigate those challenges. We're also looking at the environmental side from decarbonization. I think it's important to have that in your portfolio and have a technology suite that can be adapted or tailored as per the field requirements.
And you have opportunities for your own business to be a major growth player in the service business, in the engineering business of oil and gas, but also to be a partner choice for other companies wanting to come in.
We're ready and happy to have that discussion with companies from the UK. Like I said, for me, honestly speaking, it's not just about PetroGas and talking about what we do. It's kind of helping realize what Libya's potential is. And as you asked earlier, it's not just one country. The UK's got a role to play and other countries have as well. But I think the UK's got a special place in terms of, like I said, its technical expertise, its ability to, in terms of administration, management, capacity building, and also I think first and foremost in terms of education as well. So that know-how is incredibly important.
Ihab Mokhtar, thank you so much. It's been really enlightening. I'm looking forward to coming out to Tripoli for our next visit.
We'll sort out the visa for you, don't worry.
For everybody else listening, and I hope you enjoy that. And I think that's what I wanted to take the time with Ihab today to do, to let everybody know that Libya is opening up, and with care and attention and patience, it's now a market to be taken seriously. So gold rush perhaps as well. We will see. Thank you so much, Ihab.
Thank you, Stuart. Appreciate it.